Nandu Singh is there. He is co-coordinator of this FIP program and basically professor in the Department of Commerce.
Okay. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
We will be in touch with you because we are from the same stream, Commerce and Management.
Yes, yes. Sure.
Right. I think there seems to be some issue with the video.
Yeah, now okay, madam. Yeah.
Now okay. Right, sir.
So, still 2-3 minutes, madam. We will start exactly 10 o'clock.
Perfect. So the participants will be able to use the chat window?
Yeah, chat window, madam, like last time.
Right, perfect. So how often do you conduct these FDP programs?
Madam, actually UGC have given our courses. Okay, around every year we are conducting around 30-35 courses, and out of 30 courses, some are a specific subject domain, like some science, some physical sciences, chemistry, physics, like this. Because the objective of the UGC is to train the teacher of all disciplines. Okay, and in this type of the program, there is a multidisciplinary, means this is orientation. All the newly recruited faculty, colleges and universities, they have to compulsorily go to this type of the lecture program. We call it faculty induction program, where they will learn different skills, communication skill, personality development skill, as well as the teaching attitude, how to evaluate the answer script. No, so mainly philosophy of the education, so that they can get the training. So within first 1 year, they have to join this course. So every year 4-5 this type of the courses our HRDC used to conduct.
This is only for the faculty of your university or across India?
Across, madam. Now also more than 10 state, any faculty, any university system, government system, college or university, when they will join, they have to go for this course.
Okay, perfect.
Within 4 years, they have to complete first this course, interdisciplinary, then after that one specific course on their own subject.
Okay. Right. I think Dr. Singh, you are on mute if you are trying to say something.
No.
We have, madam, in our university, we have a school, School of Management, Economics, Commerce, and Information Science, in which we have 6 departments: Library Science, Commerce, Economics, Management, Mass Communication, and Tourism Management.
Okay.
So now in our school dean, so presently Professor Bhartendu is heading the school as a dean of our school also.
And what's your specialization, sir?
Bhartendu, sir.
No, Manoj, sir.
Yours.
No, myself, madam, I am library science. So actually, I am deputy director, additional charge of the HRDC. So in that capacity, all the program we are running, I am there. But sir is co-coordinator, coordinating the point. I am from HRDC side, not my subject background.
Right.
I am library science, madam. Different as a teacher, library science, different discipline we are working. So normally we are, my specialization is mapping the science, the cytometrics, bibliometrics, one discipline is there. So we map the different research output of the different subject, which is useful for the policy making of the government, funding agency, what research is going on different area.
Right.
So I am working in that type of the area of bibliometrics, cytometrics area.
Right. So we can start now. It's
Yeah. So, dear participant, good morning to all. And this morning we are going to start our session with a very eminent speaker, Professor Alka Maurya. Professor Alka Maurya is presently working as a professor in Amity International Business School, Amity University, Noida, and head of Department of International Business Management. She is a computer science graduate and has done her master in international business from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi. Her area of specialization is international business, and she is engaged in teaching subjects like WTO, global business management, trade trade, logistics, and documentation, managing business in emerging market, and to postgraduate student. She has more than 36 years teaching and research experience. During her last assignment with the Plastic Export Promotion Council, she worked as a deputy director. She worked on a number of the projects for promoting the exports of plastic products from the India. She visited many countries to as a keynote speaker and presented her research work in many national and international conferences, and has authored several books. Her research work is published in reputed and national and international journal. So a very eminent scholar. Today, Madam is going to talk about the communication skill and the communication for teaching and learning, how it is useful. So, Madam, on behalf of the HRDC MzU University, I welcome you in this sixth faculty induction program with me and my co-coordinator, Professor Bhartendu Singh. And now handing over the session to you for your interaction and presentation, Madam.
Thank you, Professor Verma and Professor Singh. It's always a privilege to be part of the session, and I enjoy interacting with students. And good morning to all the participants. I can see a lot of chats in the chat window. Normally when I conduct my session, I always ensure that it is not a one-way communication. And for a wonderful topic like this, wherein we are talking about communication in the teaching learning process, I want that there should be interaction both ways. So even though in this online mode, I cannot see you, all of you can see me, but definitely we will be interacting through the chat window. And in my presentation also, I have planned the flow in such a way that there are a lot of questions wherein, I'll not be able to move on to the next slide unless I get feedback from all of us. And also, I believe that learning happens, if all the participants are interacting and communicating with each other. So I'll start with my presentations and look forward to interaction from all of you. There'll be some MCQs and also a few questions which I'll be asking from the audience, and look forward to interaction with all of you so that we can have a wonderful, wonderful session, which is meaningful for all of us. Because I believe that each and every class is not meant for teaching the students. I believe that in every class, there is also a possibility for the facilitator also to learn. So I look forward to a lot of lessons from each one of you while we will be going through the session.
Madam.
Yeah. There's some problem with the video.
Yeah. Okay. Just I want to, yeah, Madam.
Just 1 minute, sir. There is some bandwidth issue.
Now, okay, Madam.
Thank you. I think again there is some. The moment I'm trying to share my screen, I think problem is coming. Maybe this will help. I hope my presentation is visible to all.
Yeah, Madam. PPT is visible.
So all of us have gathered for this very wonderful topic on communication for teaching learning process. And since all of us are teachers out here, so we have our own set of challenges when we are there in the class, when we are interacting with all these stakeholders. So I'll try and touch upon all the aspects wherein we have to communicate with our students, with our peers, with our HODs, with top management people, and so on. So this is how I have structured my presentation. So first of all, we'll try and understand what is communication, what is the communication process, what are various modes of communication that are being used, why there is a need for effective communication, and what are essential tips to become a good communicator. What are 7 C's of communication? Because this is one of the very, very important aspect that we believe that until unless we will be taking care of all these 7 C's, we might not be effective in our communication. Then what are communication challenges for teachers, and what are etiquettes that we have to maintain while we are sending an email or while we are there for an online session like this. So the first question that comes to our mind is, what is communication, right? On the chat window, you can see I've written that communication is teaching and listening. So do all of you agree with me that communication is just teaching and listening, or there is something more to communication? I want participants to respond, right? As I said, I will be looking forward to responses from each one of you. And do not hesitate in responding. In my class, I always tell my students that, you should share your thoughts. This is the first step to be confident about your thoughts and about sharing what actually you know, right? So I look forward to many more conversations, chats. I can see Mr. Varte have mentioned that communication is exchange of ideas, thoughts, and opinions. Ms. Shreya have mentioned that it is exchange of one's view to another. I look forward to more chats. Dr. Vijay Lakshmi has mentioned that, yes, I agree, it is speaking and listening. But when we talk about communication, Ms. Priyanka, teaching, listening, understanding, transfer of information, gestures too. This was the one thing I actually was looking forward to. So Mr. Aditya Kant and Mr. Devi also have mentioned that gesture is also important. Interaction definitely is another aspect which is very important tool when we talk about communication. So when we talk about the communication process, it is just 10% comprises of the words that we use to communicate with each other. 30% is the tone and tuning, and 60% is the body language. So your body language, the way you are communicating with the audience is most important thing in the entire communication process. Because it might happen that you have used sophisticated words while communicating to the person, but your body gesture is not correct. Or maybe you are sitting in a formal environment and the way you are sitting is not correct. So that will not give a right kind of perception to the audience, and audience might not be able to take you seriously. So when you'll be speaking to them, your communication might not be effective because they do not take you as a good speaker. So body language is one of the very, very important aspect in the entire communication process. And when we are talking about words, if there are certain words which I'm using to communicate with you, my tone also matters a lot. All of us are teachers and would have seen that, when there is some sort of disturbance in the class, in the first instance, we try to be slightly polite. And we say, I want complete silence in the class. And when we say it politely, maybe it is not that effective. And when we increase our tone, definitely the communication is more effective. And the students understand that they actually have to sit quietly in the class. That is why the tone and tuning of our communication is also equally important. When we talk about the communication process, as I think all of us know that in the communication process, we have a sender, we have a receiver. In this case, while we are communicating, I am the sender, all of you are the receiver. It's true other way around also. I'm looking to reading your chats. So you are the sender in that case. So many faculty members who have responded were the senders and I was the receiver. So it works both ways. And then we also have a channel which is being used to communicate with. So in this case, we are using Zoom, which is online mode to communicate with each other. And then the sender and the receiver also code and decode the information as it reaches them. And one very, very important aspect is the noise, right? While we are communicating with each other, we might not be effective because of the noise in our surrounding. When I was about to start, I was facing some connectivity issue, touch wood, which is working fine now. So that also is an example of noise in the communication process, wherein we are not able to communicate effectively with each other. All of us face this problem in the class when the students are creating some kind of nuisance, and we are not able to communicate effectively with them. So noise is also one of the aspects we have to keep in mind, and we have to ensure that how we can control the noise so that we are able to communicate effectively with the audience. This question for all of you. As I said, there'll be a lot of questions all throughout my presentations. So when we talk about the communication process, and since we also have understood that in a communication process, we have a receiver and we also have a sender. As a teacher, when you are there in the class, or when you're there in the campus, right, who are your receivers? Who are the set of people whom you communicate on a regular basis? So I want responses from each one of you, that while you are there in the campus, right, who are your receivers? At times you are there in the class, at times you are communicating with each other, at times you're there in the field, you're sitting in the library with Professor Verma. So during all such instances, who are the people you are communicating with? In that scenario, you are the sender, and there are people with whom you are communicating who are your receivers, right? So I'm getting responses, the students, colleagues, staff. That's the common response from most of the faculty members. Right. So students, colleagues, administration, and the staff are your receivers. Now the next question is, and also the non-teaching staff, good, Shreya? Right. So do you think you communicate with everyone in the same manner? Is your communication with the students same as your communication with your peers, or maybe with your co-workers, with the non-teaching staff, and so on? Right. So good. Everyone agrees with me that the communication process is not same with everyone. It varies from person to person, is what Priyanka have mentioned. Right. And now just take it to a different perspective. We were talking about the communication process in the professional environment, right? We also communicate with each other with our relatives, with our family, and then there is a different tone of our communication. Ms. Arundhati Ganguly have mentioned that sometimes we need to communicate with parents and student union also. Very, very true, very true. So when we talk about the stakeholders or the receivers, as a faculty, we interact with a lot of people, and as all of you already have mentioned and made my task slightly easier. So we interact with the students, we interact with our peers within and outside the organization, we interact with our subordinates, with parents, with HODs, top management, and we also communicate with our family. And the question out here is that we do not communicate with them in the same way. And also the mode of communication is also not same. Our mode of communication also changes. Our tone, our words, our body language is different when we are talking with different stakeholders. And also the communication process also changes depending upon the situation. When we are there in the class and the class is absolutely disciplined, our communication style is different. But when in class, the students are creating some nuisance, our communication style is different. Someone mentioned about that we also have to communicate with the parents and student unions. And depending upon the scenario, depending upon the problem that has been put forward to us, we try and communicate with them to ensure that we are, first of all, able to pacify and address the grievances which the parents or the students have. And if we are not able to do it ourselves, then we take it to the higher level until unless we are able to resolve the. So when we talk about that communication is different with different stakeholders, then we also should know that there are different modes of communication. And again, when we look at each of these mode of communication, We also can make out, since it's a funnel shaped diagram that you can see in front of you. So we also can make out as to what will be quality of communication, right? Because quality of communication depends upon the mode that we are using. All of us have seen those times when we used to conduct classes online, and all of us have seen that the teaching learning process was not so effective. Whereas when we conduct classes with the same student in a face-to-face mode, the quality of education is much, much better. So that is why you can see in front of you that when we have face-to-face conversations, the quality of our communication is the best. That's the richest source of communication, mode of communication for interaction between group of people. And this particular, it also talks about whether this mode of communication is frequent and infrequent. So when we have face-to-face conversation with our students, it's not so regular. Maybe depending upon the load that has been given to us, we communicate with them twice a week, thrice a week, and so on. Then we have live speeches. We have online discussion groups. We make our own video on YouTube or WhatsApp and other such medium to communicate with the students. Again, the quality of communication is not so rich because the interaction cannot happen. If the student is having a doubt, he cannot raise his concern there and then. Maybe he can write to you on WhatsApp, or he can mail to you about his concern, and then there is a delay in raising a question and getting the answer for that. So that is why face-to-face mode of conversation is the richest mode, even though the other modes like email, voicemail, telephone communication, and video conferences also are being used. So depending upon whom we are interacting, if we are interacting with the parents, then maybe we are initially or frequently communicating with them through emails. And when there is any kind of a problem which needs immediate attention or urgent attention, then we try and have face-to-face conversation. So this is just to give you a brief idea about various modes of communication that are being used in our daily communication process, and what is the quality of communication, that it depends upon the mode which we are using. Again, a question. So even though most of you have answered this question initially, but still, so when we talk about communication, which of the four options do you think is correct? Option A is exchanging thoughts, ideas, and messages through speech and body language. B, imparting information. C, a system such as mail, telephone, or television for sending messages. Or D, all of the above. I want responses from the participants on the first quiz that I have in my presentation. And the question is, what do you think is communication? And out of the four options that are there in front of you, you have to tell me which one is correct. So this was the easiest one, and I'm glad to see all correct answers, wherein everyone is saying that all of the above are an essential part of the communication process. Thank you. So I have a lovely audience today, and that makes my day. And that also motivates me to, be alive during the entire presentation. Otherwise, we have seen in our classes that, when the students are not there on the screen, at times I always tell them, it feels that I'm talking to the walls because I cannot see any kind of interaction from the other side. But I'm really glad that I'm getting so many responses today. Thank you, all of you. Now, the next question is, why effective communication? Why do we always have to, think about that my communication should be very, very, very effective? We have seen it in our family, right? At times, we try to convey something, but it is being perceived some other way by our own family members, right? And the people who know us for years and years and who are very much aware about our habits and other things, even they perceive us wrongly, right? And imagine a scenario when we are interacting with the students in the class, and if we are, say for example, we are taking class with the first semester students, and on the first or the second day of our class, right, we are not we are not, at times we feel that the students do not perceive us correctly. We wanted to convey something else, but they have taken it other way around, and because of which we cannot achieve the desired output. So it is very, very important that we should know that while we are communicating with our stakeholders, with our receivers, we must ensure that we are able to convey the message in a very, very effective manner. And it is important because we have to be absolutely clear in our communication, both in our professional and personal success. And also in today's world, we believe that when we are interacting with people across different cultures, right? It is not the scenario that we are interacting only with people in our country. At times, we also have to interact with people from different culture. We also have classes on cross-cultural communication, wherein we teach our students that you have to be very, very particular about the communication process when you are interacting with the person from other parts of the world. Normally in India, we perceive that, if it's a thumbs up, we perceive, it is being perceived that we are conveying to the other person that whatever you have said, whatever you have done is absolutely right. But it is not perceived the same way in other cultures. Another example can be of, when you are going for a meeting in Middle East part of the world, it might not be considered a good gesture if you are shaking hand with the women, right? So we have to be very, very particular about the way in which we will be communicating with our receivers. And today, it is also being perceived that capacity to communicate effectively is also considered as indicator of our ability and intelligence. The more we know, the more we learn, the better we will be in our way of communication with the receivers. The next question is that if we have to be always try to be effective in our communication, so what skills are required to be a good communicator? Since all of you have been through the college life and also have done your doctorate, I can see some of the PhD candidates also out here. So I would first of all like to understand from each one of you that you have communicated with your teachers and now you are on the other side of the table wherein you will be communicating with the students. So you have seen both part of the words. So I would like to understand from you now that what do you think are the essential skills which are required to be a good communicator? So again, a question, and I look forward to the answer from my lovely audience, that what skills are required to be a good communicator? Clarity and a good listener. Good, Priyanka. I know you might be typing, long answers, so I'll wait for some time. And I look forward to responses from each one of you. We need to understand the mind of our audience. Good, Professor Arundhati. So whatever, when you are communicating in the family, when you are communicating in the professional work environment, so whatever, irrespective of the environment you are communicating in, right? Just try and think, what are the essential skills to be a good communicator? Good grasp of subjects. Good, Professor Aditya. Dr. Vijay Lakshmi have mentioned that it is conveying to the point. Good. Clarity and understanding for the listeners. Good, Professor Devi. Mr. Sanjeev have mentioned a very important point. He's saying that to be a good communicator, you should be a good listener. Good. I'll wait for a few more minutes and then I'll move on to the next slide, which have a lot of points that we have to keep in mind to ensure that we are able to communicate properly with the audience. Clarity, complete information, confidence, concise information, good knowledge about the topic of communication is what Shreya have written. Fine. Can I expect few more responses? Language. Good, Shabnam. Clarity in thought and thinking to express. Professor Hemanta have mentioned that. Good body language. Again, Shabnam have given another response. Mr. Rajan Singh, listen actively and note body language. Listening skills is what Professor they have mentioned. I'm sorry, might not be able to pronounce your name correctly. I'm really sorry for that, but I'll try and read all the messages which are there in the chat window. Rich vocabulary. Good, Deepika. Fine. So I will move on to my next slide, which talks about what are the important things that we have to keep in mind when while ensuring that we are very effective in our communication. The first thing is content, and this is what Professor Deepika have mentioned, that we should have a rich vocabulary. So if we will have a good content, even we would have realized ourselves that at times we might not be 100% prepared for a class or for a lecture that we are about to take. And we know that if we are not fully prepared, we are not that confident in delivering the lecture in the class. So good content is one of the important and the utmost important thing to be a good communicator. Trust me, when we use our PowerPoint for communication in the slide in the class, and we do not rehearse through our PowerPoint, we are not so confident. But if we have made the PowerPoint ourselves, we have written each and every word ourselves in the presentation. So even after, a few glances through the slide, we can be very, very effective in our communication because we have prepared the entire content on our own. So content is the foremost requirement to be a good communicator. And after that, confidence. And trust me, the confidence will come automatically if you have created the content yourself. In the class, when we take presentation of our students, we have seen that at times they have the habit of, downloading the complete presentation from the net. They just change the first slide and then they start with the presentations. And what happens in such scenario is that they eventually end up reading from the slide. So whatever is written on the slide, they'll just read that from the first slide till the end. And the reason for that is that they had not created the content themselves. And because of which they're not confident. And thirdly, because of which they end up just reading through the presentation. So I tell my students that if you want to be confident in your presentation, try to have bullet points, right? Rather than just having a full paragraph on the slide, just try and have bullet points and try and rehearse your presentation at least 4 or 5 times standing in the mirror. Or maybe today, we are blessed that we have latest technology. We can record a presentation on Zoom and can see as to what are the areas of improvement there. So confidence is very important, which will come automatically with the good content. The third thing is enthusiasm, right? You should be enthusiastic about your own presentation. You should be enthusiastic for the class which you will be taking, the subject you will be teaching. And while you are there in such kind of online presentations, enthusiasm is very, very important. And specifically in those scenarios wherein you do not see anyone sitting in front of you. So enthusiasm in each and every scenario, whether you are there for a social function, you are there for some kind of gathering within the university, and you have to interact with people around you. So enthusiasm, if you'll be enthusiastic, if you will be full of zeal, your communication definitely will be better. And you can relate it with your day-to-day experiences. If you are slightly stressed or not happy because of any personal or other professional reasons, and the enthusiasm is missing, you are not so good at communication. Maybe your classes are also not that effective during that time if your mind is slightly preoccupied. But if you're full of energy and you are really happy about taking the new topic in the class, then you'll be full of energy, you'll be full of enthusiasm, and your classes eventually will end up to be very, very effective. Then is clear objective and aim. If I talk about taking the classes itself, if we have clarity on what lecture we are taking, which topic we are covering in the class, and what is the objective of this particular lecture, right? Maybe we want the students to understand as to why it is good to be a good communicator. So if I have clear objective that I only have to talk about how we can improve upon our communication skills, then I'll structure my presentation according to that. There will not be any sort of deviation from the topic which I'm supposed to cover. So the clear objective and aim is equally important. Then is, sorry, I turn to the, then is a well-written script. Example of this can be as a academician. All of us at times, as part of our responsibilities, as part of our KRA, also are supposed to write some research papers and so on, right? And then we also submit our research papers to various journals. At times, they are accepted with just 1 or 2 review. And at times, it also takes years for the final manuscript to be accepted by the editor. And if we have done a really good research work and our manuscript is also absolutely fine, then after 1 or 2 review, it is accepted by the editor. But if we have not done a good work, maybe we have just cut, copy, paste, and the flow within the entire research paper or the case study is not there, then definitely we go through multiple reviews before it is being accepted. And if it is not a well-written script, we also face a lot of instances wherein it is being rejected by the editor. So whether we are talking about writing our own research papers or making our own presentations, we have to ensure that we have a well-written script. Also, effective start. Trust me, if you will be there in a class or while you will be presenting your research papers, if you are confident in the beginning, right, the confidence will be there throughout the presentation, throughout the lecture till the end. Effective start is also very important. Normally, I advise my students that when you have to give the presentation yourself, at least please ensure that you are able to have a clarity on how you will be starting, right? So effective start is also one of the aspects we have to keep in mind. As I said in the beginning, that I always want my sessions to be interactive because I look forward to learning from the audience also in each of my sessions. So when I say that I want communication to flow from both sides, definitely I end up having a good session. And this is not just for the online sessions like this. Even in my class, I said I will not be using any PowerPoint, but I want more interaction, more communication to happen because that is a effective way of teaching and learning. Because until unless you'll ask questions, until unless you will be sharing your thoughts, we might not be able to have a connect wherein we ensure that the communication has been effective and the receivers have perceived it correctly. Then is a clear voice. Just imagine if we would have had a bad network today and there would have been a lot of disruptions, then the communication would not have been effective. So whether it is an online class or it's a physical class, we have to ensure that we have clarity in our voice and we are able to convey our messages effectively to the audience. Speed is also important. This reminds me of a very interesting video wherein the speech was by High Commissioner of UK. And he was talking about how students are learning these days. I'm sure all of you will be able to recall the time when we used to have online classes. And in fact, I've seen both my kids, what they do is that if they have to they have to, go through a video on YouTube for any educational topics or for any of their classes, maybe on MzU and Vedantu and stuff like that. I've seen that what they do is that they'll increase the speed to 2x, right? And I don't know how they can understand what the teacher is saying, but this is what is happening these days. And this is what the High Commissioner of UK was mentioning in one of his speech, wherein he mentioned that even in school, students that are going to kindergarten, right, they have adopted these strategies wherein they try to run the video at 2x speed, and God knows what they actually are able to understand from that. So the speed at which we are communicating also is very important. When we are in face-to-face or live conversations like this, definitely we can control our speed, right? But when we are referring to recorded lectures, it is totally up to the receiver whether he runs the entire video at 2x speed, or he just keeps on skipping for 10 seconds and like that. So good speed, normal speed is what is important for a good communication. In logical sequence, in my presentation, you would have seen that the second slide was talking about what is the flow of my presentation. So if you arrange things in a logical and a sequential manner, it will also help you in better delivering your lectures or your presentations during conferences or in the classrooms. Then audience, which is a very, very important aspect of a communication process. In the beginning, some of you mentioned that listening is also equally important in the communication process, right? So until unless we have an audience who is attentive, who actually is listening to you, right? Only then the communication will be effective. And trust me, the audience will be listening to you if you have a good content. If we will also go to our class with the one paragraph on every slide and we will start reading from the PowerPoint presentation, we might not be able to impart the same topic which we are supposed to cover to the students. So it is very important that we as a sender and the audience as a receiver are able to communicate properly, and it will happen only when the audience is attentive. They are paying attention to each and every word which you actually are talking in the classrooms or such kind of sessions. The next is local language. When I was supposed to take the FDP session for the first time, I asked Professor Verma as to what should be the preferred language for communication. And he said it has to be English. And when we go for such kind of presentations in other parts of the country, I'm being invited by various universities, so I check with them. When we are in northern part of the country, at times they say that a combination of Hindi and English will do. When we are in the southern part of the country, they say no, it has to be totally in English. And similarly, for the eastern part of the country, they prefer that the communication should be in English. So depending upon the audience, you also should be flexible in using the language which is understood by majority of the audience. Then effective end, right? When we are planning our lecture towards the end, we also mention that what is supposed to be communicated to the student during the lecture. In the syllabus, we also have to mention what is the learning outcome. That we should have at least 4 to 5 quiz towards the end of the class to understand that whether the students have perceived the communication properly or not. So the effective end is also one of the important aspects. Then time limit. For this particular presentation also, I've been told that I just have 1.5 hours for the complete presentation. So I have structured my presentation in such a way that I do not exceed the time limit. And when we were students, we can recall our own times. There have been instances wherein the professor used to extend the classes by 15 minutes or maybe half an hour. So those classes, those 15 minutes or 30 minutes were not were not so effective in the entire teaching learning process. So we should adhere to the time limit and ensure that we are able to communicate, we are able to finish our presentations within the time. And last is courtesy, that when you have finished your class, normally, we see that students say, thank you, ma'am, or thank you, sir. So that is the courtesy they extend. And on our part also, we tell them that we are glad to have a lovely audience today. So that particular connect is also important towards the end of the class. It should not happen that we move out of the class, bluntly without saying anything. To ensure that we are able to communicate regularly, and we are able to have that connect even beyond our classrooms. Courtesy is equally important. So as you have mentioned earlier, to be a good communicator, we should be a good listener. At times, we actually build our own communication barriers. At times, what we do is that without even listening till the end, we jump to conclusion, or we try and make our own perceptions about the speaker, right? So we should try and avoid such kind of communication barrier so that we are able to perceive the message in the same tone as it is being conveyed by the sender. So we should avoid jumping to conclusion. We should ensure that we actually are listening to the speaker, and our thoughts are not wandering here and there. We should not filter out unimportant part of a conversation. I've seen people, who finish a novel of 250 pages in 1 hour. And I say, how you're able to do it? And then they say, we only just read the important part, right? So maybe they are missing out on the interesting section of the novel. But when I read it, I start from the first word and go till the end. So we should not do such kind of a thing wherein we assume that these are not so important part, and we filter it ourselves. So that thing also should not happen. And prematurely having a response even before the person is done speaking. So as an etiquette, we should respond only when we are asked to do so. We should not indulge into any kind of arguing and debating. All of us have seen this multiple times in our own classrooms, wherein students, even without waiting till the end, they have their own perceptions, and then they start arguing and arguing to such an extent that they want to prove that they are right and we are wrong. And even though such instances are very rare in classroom sessions, but we should know also how to control such kind of communication in the class. Then at times we do not ask questions or we do not respond because we think that we might offend the speaker, but it does not happen. Even when we share our own experiences, even when we share our own thoughts, we might be incorrect, we might be wrong. But even when we are wrong and the teacher tells us that, this is the right thing, so that's a learning for us. So we should not be offended by, we should not be scared of asking questions, assuming that we might offend the speaker. In all my classes and all my sessions, I always say, ask as many questions as possible. I'm not an encyclopedia, so I might not be able to answer all your questions. But the one I'm able to answer, I'll answer it there and then. And for others, I say, I'll get back to you. Right? So that again is a learning process, that the questions which I'm not able to answer, I will go back, I'll find answers to that question, and I'll share it in the next class. So the communication will be effective if you are a good listener. Both the receiver and sender also are good listeners. So that it's a learning process for both of them. We also feel uncomfortable about expressing our emotions, right? We should avoid that. Whatever comes to our mind, we should share that with the speaker when you are being asked to respond, so that you are able to learn effectively. Communication barrier also are when we have lack of knowledge about a subject or a topic that is being discussed in the class. and also when there is a non-verbal behavior. A very, very common example of this is when you are taking a class and you see students busy on their mobile phone. The first thing I always do when I enter the classes, I tell them that your mobile phone should be at the right place, and the right place is your bag. I tell them I should not see any mobile phone on the desk. And then I see that I can have an eye-to-eye contact with my student and the lectures are more effective. So we have to ensure when any such kind of non-verbal behavior is there, we have to ensure that, or we have to develop strategies to ensure that we are able to engross our audience in the communication. Now, I've spoken for a length now. So there is a question for all of you. And I hope that all of you were attentive while I was talking about those important aspects. So the question is, which of the following are barriers to effective communication? And the options for you are distraction, noise and movement, poor timings, and all of the above. So it's your time now to speak out your thoughts. Right, good. Fine. So again, an easy question. And since all of you were attentive, so are able to answer it correctly, I can't see even a single incorrect answer. Happy to see that, right? So I have responses, a lot of responses, and everyone have mentioned that D is the correct answer. That distraction, noise and movement, and poor timing, all these are barriers to effective communication. And we should try and avoid that whenever we are the receiver or we are the sender. So how you can become a good communicator? Most important aspect is that try and pay attention, try to be a good listener. And most of you agreed with me even before I started with my presentation. So we have to pay attention and we have to make the speaker realize that you actually are paying attention. And you can do so by looking at the speaker directly. As I said, that when I tell my students to keep the mobile phone in the bag, I actually can see a eye-to-eye contact with each one of them. So when you have such kind of scenario in the class, you can be sure of that at least, for the 50% of the student in the class, you actually are able to give the right knowledge to them. Maybe 50% might be distracted because of one or the other reason, but at least 50% are 100% listening to you. So if you have an eye-to-eye contact with the speaker will understand that you actually are listening to them. Put aside your distracting thought, even though it's very difficult, but we should try and do that in the class. And it actually happens, when the lecture is very good, very interesting, and the speaker is also very interesting, then you are paying full attention. But when the speaker is not so effective, and at times you are lost in your own thoughts. You would have seen this while watching a movie, at times when we go and watch a movie, we say that it was very engrossing and the editing was good, the script was good, and all throughout the 3 hours, you actually were uh, involved in the movie, and your thoughts were not wandering here and there. So that is how our classes should be. That is how we should plan our lectures. That maybe we can have a mix of videos, we can have mix of images, we can have a lot of questions, so that we are able to engage the audience also at times. Our lecture should be like a Bollywood movie, wherein when we start, we engross the audience to such an extent that they stay with us till the end. And even when the class is over, they have few questions in their mind, which they keep on brainstorming with each other. I think even you would have seen it number of times that, when you have a really good session with the students, at times they have so many thoughts, or maybe the class end up having a debate between students. And it is very difficult to conclude the class at that point of time. And then I end up the class saying that you can continue with your debate, with your arguments after the class is over. So if we actually are able to make each and every lecture of art in such a manner, then definitely we can think that we actually are good teachers. So don't mentally prepare a rebuttal wherein we end up arguing with the sender. So that thing should not happen. And you should also listen to the speaker's body language. As I mentioned in the beginning, that when you are in a formal kind of an environment, the way you sit, the way you communicate is also very important. While attending many workshops and MDPs, you would have noticed that there are few speakers who are comfortable when they're speaking from the podium, right? So we also should, that's an example of how we can look at the body language of the speaker, right? Depending upon the environment where you are, at times the organizers might have just arranged for a sofa and a table and a mic on the table itself, wherein you have to communicate while you are sitting. But in most of the cases, if they have provided a podium, then the speakers feel comfortable if they actually go and speak from there. So the body language while you are in a communication process is also very important. Second important aspect is that you have to also show that you are listening. And in physical classrooms, it can be done by nodding occasionally, by smiling and other kind of facial expression, and smiling just to the extent to convey that you're understanding what the teacher is trying to say. Then note your posture. At times, it happens in class that students just simply bend their head, and they just keep their head on the table, and they sit like that. And when I ask them what's the reason, they say, I'm not feeling well, right? So I tell them that you have to be attentive in the class, and no matter what, when you're sitting in the class, you have to sit straight. So your posture, your body language also is very important, and it helps the speaker in understanding or perceiving that whether you are paying attention to him or not. Then encourage the speaker. And the only way to encourage the speaker is to respond. The more you'll respond, the more motivated the person will be to communicate with. But if that will be lacking, then definitely the person also might wind up his lecture in a very, very dull note. And how you can develop active listening skills, which is by providing feedback. So your role as a listener is to understand what is being said. You reflect on what has been said by paraphrasing. At times, you would have seen that when you ask questions, specifically in the conferences, when a question is being asked to a speaker, they normally start answering the question by saying that, I understand that you are asking me about XYZ. So when you're responding to a question, also try to be sure of that you have understood the question correctly. And you should defer judgment. You should allow the speaker to finish their point, their presentation first, and then you can share your own thoughts, your own opinion. Respond appropriately. Be candid and honest and open in your responses. Assert your opinions respectfully. You might not agree with me. You might say that I don't agree with point number 4, right? So which is correct, right? You can have your own opinion, but when you are putting forward your opinion, you should be trying to be very respectful, and it should not appear that you are trying to portray that the speaker is wrong and you are correct. Also, to become a good communicator, at times we have to develop strategies which help us in responding to a particular situation that we face in our day-to-day life. So I have a question from you now. I want to learn from each one of you rather that, how do you react to any kind of nuisance which is there in the class? All of us as teachers, right, we cannot say that all our classes till date have been very calm and very peaceful. At one point or the other, we have faced such scenario wherein there had been some sort of nuisance in the class. So when such thing happens, right, how do you respond? The nuisance could be that the students enter late in the class and they try and disturb the class. The nuisance can be that the student is trying to prove that he's right and you are wrong, and there is an argument inside the class. The nuisance can be that even though you are trying students to be quiet, but they are continuing with their own chit chats. So, in such kind of a scenario, right, how do you react? At times, we end up being aggressive and we end up shouting at the student, right? But can there be other strategies to this? Is what I need to learn from you now. I have my own strategies to control classes in such a scenario, and I look forward to listening to your strategies now. So, Professor Shantanu Ghosh have written, first I approach to the problem and try to solve them calmly. Good. Dr. Priyanka, Professor Priyanka have mentioned individually go to him, her, and try to explain him his faults without embarrassing the student in front of the class. Good, Priyanka. I hope everyone is listening to me, and I look forward to responses and learning from you as to how you manage your classes during such scenarios. So I've spoken my part and I want to be a listener now. And the comments in the chat box is depiction of how effective I have been in last 1 hour while I'm communicating with you. And this also is a strategy, to have a break in between. So it's good both ways that I can give some sort of break to my conversation, and I also can listen to each one of you. I stopped talking a minute. Good. Towards approaching to the problem and solving them. Good. Sarcasm is what Dr. Vijay Lakshmi have mentioned. Yes, it also helps at times. Good. Face-to-face conversation to everybody who makes the disturbance and try to solve the problem, and stop to teach the topic for a while. Good, Professor Shreya. So there are 55 participants in the session. And till now, I have got only 3, 4, 5, 6 responses. So can I assume that the others were not attentive? Make a democratic environment in the classroom is what Dr. Subodh have mentioned. Humor, good, Elijah. Right. So this also, calms the situation and helps us in controlling our stress level. But definitely at times what happens that the nuisance have been created to such an extent that we are not calm, and at times we lose our anger. But humor definitely is one of the good option to be used in such kind of scenarios. Ask him or her a direct question on the lesson taught for a with a humorous smile. Good, Dr. Mangler. Right. So it's good to see that, all of us, irrespective of which university, which state we are in, but we face such kind of situations in the class. Good. I'll wait for 1 more minute. Right. And I look forward to more responses. I consider it as I consider this to be my test, right? So I have submitted my answers and I need my evaluation, which is the responses from each one of you, and which will truly reflect how good a communicator I have been for the last 1 hour. Professor Arundhati have written, take it easy, approaching them friendly, try to solve the problem. Good. Right? No one have, mentioned that they have been rude in the class, which at times we do. right? I'm waiting for few responses. Approach the problem and solve. Good. Fine. So I think I've scored well in my test. Thank you for all such responses. So, and now a quiz for all of you. As a listener, what should you do every 5 to 10 seconds in a conversation to show that you are paying attention? Options are very funny. You can look at your phone. You can interrupt the speaker. You can nod your head and say, I'm listening, and walk away in boredom. Right? So you cannot write that D is the correct answer. So it definitely has to be something else. The coincidentally responses to all the questions have been D till now. Right? Good. Good. So again, through your responses, I can make out I'm doing fairly well in my session today. Good. Right. So the correct option is that to make the speaker believe that you are listening to him, or you're listening to the speaker. You should nod your head occasionally, making him believe that you are paying attention. And in such kind of online classes, when you're responding to the chat window, it also is a reflection that all of you are very good listener. Thank you. Fine. And this is the most important aspect of a communication process. 7 C's of effective communication, right? When you are communicating with the audience, these are the 7 very important aspects you have to keep in mind. We'll start with the first one, which is clarity, right? I already have covered this in the previous slide. So when we talk about clarity, we basically are referring to absolute clarity on transfer of ideas from the sender side to the receiver side. And clarity, as I said, will only and only come through good content and clear thinking. And apart from that, to ensure that you are able to communicate very effectively with the receiver, it is advisable that you should use common and simple languages. We should construct sentences and short paragraphs, use concrete word instead of abstract words, and avoid unnecessary information. My daughter is in class 10th. She's preparing for her boards, and she was actually going through one of the chapter on nationalism. It happened just 2 days back, so I'm sharing a very live example with you. And she was slightly confused with one of the paragraph which talked about spread of nationalism in the country, right? And then when I explained the entire paragraph to her, she said it's so simple. Why have they written it? Why they have made it so complex using difficult words and sentence construction in such a way that a single sentence comprises of around 25 to 30 words. Said it could have been written in a much, much simpler language. That is how, when we are interacting with the audience, we have to ensure that we try and use simple sentences, simple words, so that we are able to effectively communicate our thoughts with the audience. So clarity is very, very important, which will come only when you have clarity within yourself. Because when you are clear within yourself, you will use simple language and you will use simple words, right? But at times we have seen that when we do not have clarity, at times we also try to make vague sentences. So that thing should not happen. Whatever topic you're planning to cover, try to have complete knowledge on the topic. And then you will see that your classes will be more effective. You will be using simple sentences and simple words. The other thing is correctness. So however, whichever way you have constructed the sentence, you must ensure that the message is being communicated correctly. I've taken a very funny example here, right? Just look at these two sentences, right? One says, I love baking my family and friend. Just imagine how it will be perceived, right? The other one with proper punctuation and grammar says that I love baking my family and my friends. So you can see that how by using just two commas in one simple sentence, the meaning of the sentence have changed, right? So try and make sentences, simple sentences, and try to use punctuations, full stops, grammar, etc. in such a way that your message is perceived in the same way you have planned it to be or you intend it to be. Nowadays, I don't know how many of you have done that, but I've seen most of the people in my group, what they do is that they have downloaded Grammarly, right? You can search for it on internet. It's a free online tool which helps you in constructing your sentences more effectively. Even while you are drafting an email, right, it can be integrated with your email application also. And it will tell you that, because at times when we are typing fast, we end up, doing some spelling mistake, which we cannot see in the email messages, even though you can notice that in your Word doc, but not in your emails. To download this particular app, it will help you in avoiding such kind of spelling mistakes, grammatical mistakes, punctuation mistakes, and so on. So this is one of the strategy I have been using, and all of you can use that to ensure that you are able to construct proper and meaningful sentences. So when we talk about correctness, you also should check the accuracy of all facts and figures. Check any kind of mistakes in punctuation, grammar, and capitalization. Check misspelled word, and also the use of right language. Next is conciseness. So try to be as brief as possible. Include only relevant material and avoid unnecessary repetition. This reminds me of one of the phrases we have been listening to since our childhood. Our English teachers used to tell us that the length of the essays should be like a girl's skirt, right? It should hide what is necessary and reveal what is necessary. So try to be very, very concise in your approach, in your communication. Next is courtesy. I already have touched upon this, which means politeness. So while you are communicating, while you are starting, while you are concluding your presentation, try to be courteous when the audience is asking question. Respect their point of view. You might differ from what they are saying, but try to be polite, try to be courteous, and respond in a very polite manner, even though they completely disagree with you, because everyone has right to put across their opinion. Avoid any kind of humor, avoid discriminatory language, for example, race, color, creed, gender, etc. This reminds me of one of the thing that happened in my class. We were talking about culture and its importance in management. So I don't know, from all of a sudden, one of the student raised the question related to ban of burqa in Karnataka High Court because of the thing that happened in the schools out there. So there were few Muslim students also sitting in the class. So while we were having this kind of a conversation, we ensure that we do not offend their sentiments. And thankfully, the entire discussion concluded by saying that everyone have right to practice their own religion. And if these schools in Karnataka are planning to ban burqa, they should have made it clear in the beginning of session rather than enforcing it in the middle of the session, so that the students can take decision accordingly. If I want to wear burqa, I take admission in an educational institute which permits me to do so. So whatever conversation we are having in the class, we have to ensure that we do not offend the people from other caste, religion, gender, and so on. Correctness. So you should avoid having any kind of vague and general messages which might result in no responses, and try to use as much facts and figures which adds to the authenticity of your statement. I've just given an example since my specialization is international business. So I've taken the example from the field of international trade itself. So there are two statements, right? In the first statement, I've mentioned that Indian economy is growing at a very fast pace, very fast pace, and India will become one of the leading global economy. It's a very vague statement, right? People might think that, this is what my thought process is. And this is a statement which is a personal opinion of Dr. Alka Maurya. But if I rewrite the same statement saying that, sorry, it's a typing mistake here. If the statement is according to IMF, which is International Monetary Fund. So just look at the next sentence now. According to IMF, India is projected to grow at 6.8% in the current fiscal year and will become the third largest economy behind the US and China by financial year 2028. Right? So when I use the term International Monetary Fund, it adds more weight to my statement, because this is a fact which is being given by one of the leading international organizations. The first statement is absolutely vague. But when I've added more facts and figures to it, it is more meaningful for the audience because they know that it is coming from one of the leading organization, and which also is projecting that by 2028, India will become the third largest economy. So we try to put facts and figures to make our statement more concrete. And this is very much required when we are writing our research papers and case studies. I hope all of you might be using in-text citation, which essentially are being used to assert the facts and figures which you are using in your research papers. Then consideration. You can see that this funny cartoon on the left-hand side, wherein the teacher is asking a student to write down, to give her, tell her the chemical composition for water, right? And the student have simply written on the blackboard that it is HIDKLMNO, wherein the answer was very simple. It was H2O. And this is how it was perceived by the student. And so the question was something else, and the answer was totally different what the teacher was expecting. So when we are communicating, we have to be considerate about the receiver. We should think as to how it will be perceived by the speaker. And that is how we should basically plan our entire communication. So when you're making a presentation, when you're writing a research paper, you have to see the material from the reader's point of view. When you're making a PowerPoint presentation or lecture, preparing for a lecture for the class, just try and see as to whether it is of the level of the student whom you'll be interacting with. In my university, I'm teaching both undergraduate and postgraduate students. And I use different strategies because I know postgraduate students are more mature and they can understand slightly complex situations. But for the undergraduate students, I have to be very simple. So we have to plan our communication from the reader's point of view. Very important, we have to focus on you instead of me, because when we will think about the reader, about the receiver, right, our communication automatically will fall in place. Be sure that the communication is actually beneficial for the receiver. If you're taking a class, you have to ensure that your lecture, your content actually is actually making a lot of meaning and is actually useful for the students. Consider the needs and problems of the receiver and be positive and optimistic in the class. In this completeness, complete message is one which contains all the facts required by the receiver. When I make any kind of a communication, I always remember my childhood days. And all of us have been gone through those phases when we used to ask our parents what, when, why, and how, right? As we grew up, the first question is what? If the water is there, why water is there? Then how water comes, right? So we followed the same sequence as we had grown up: what, when, how, and where. So when we are planning our communication, we should keep all these W's in our mind and ensure that when we have planned our complete lecture, we have addressed all these what, when, where, how, who, and how, right? It will help us in getting clarity within ourselves. And when we'll be clear, the lecture or the presentations will be more effective. So try and provide all necessary information, answer all the questions which are being asked, and include additional information if it is desired. Now, coming on to some common communication challenges, so those were 7 C's of communication. Now, I'm just left with 10 minutes or so. So I'll just quickly wind up the last few slides of my presentation. So in this slide, we'll be talking about few common communication challenges we face as a teacher. One pertains to time limitations. In my university, we have to finish our lecture within 50 minutes, within which we also have to take the attendance, we also have to ensure discipline, and we also have to impart the lecture. So we plan our presentations, we plan our classes like that. So for any given scenario, whatever time has been allocated to you, you have to plan your lectures, you have to plan your communication effectively. Second most problem is perception about the teachers. I've seen over the years, when the juniors join the university, they get a lot of feedback from the seniors. And based on that, they make a perception about you. Every time, every year, we try to improve on ourselves, and we try and ensure that the seniors are being proved wrong, and we try to work on our weaknesses so that the image that the students have in their mind actually gets better year by year. So we should try to understand what perception the students have about us, and then we try and work on that. Then teacher preparation and lack of knowledge. So for that, we have to enrich our content. In fact, we have seen few teachers who still use the same slide, same presentation, which they would have made 10 years, 5 years back. As a teacher, until unless we will be updating ourselves, we will not be effective in our classes. And unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, I think it's being lucky that I teach subject like international business, wherein we have to be very, very updated. These statistics, the facts and figures change every day, every minute, every second. So until unless we are updated, we will not be able to take our classes effectively. And trust me, in my classes, I do not use any PowerPoint presentation. I just use a newspaper article. If I have to teach how economic environment is important for international business, I'll take a news article which talks about the problems which Sri Lanka is facing. Or I'll take a news article which talks about what problems Pakistan is facing. And then we try and convey to the students that this is how economic environment is important for international business, for understanding international business scenario. So we have to update ourselves very regularly to ensure that we are able to relate with the outside environment, and we also are able to relate with the students. Then we also have to interact with the students, with the parents, with the student union. Someone said we also have to interact with the people outside our organization. And one of the most frequent mode of communication in that case is email. So there are a few etiquettes, few tips, few things we have to keep in mind while using email as a mode of communication. The first thing is we should have a professional email address. In most of the cases, we are being provided an email address by our organization itself. But in case we do not have one, or we are using our own personal Gmail ID, then it should sound absolutely professional. To the younger generation, in fact, they do not appreciate such things. We have seen students who have email IDs like cute16@gmail.com and actionhero@gmail.com and so on. So all of us have grown up, and I completely believe that we do not have such kind of email addresses, but we should try and convey the same to our students also. The second thing is we should have absolute clarity on the subject line, because if we are sending mail to a editor of a journal who is receiving 50 mails every day, so he might not be able to read all the mails all by himself. So what the people in top management do, they just first of all look at the subject line, and then they try and segregate as to who should be the right person who will be addressing that mail. So if we have absolute clarity now in our subject line, then definitely the chances are that the receiver will be will be taking our emails more seriously. Maintain a professional tone. Don't be emotional while writing emails. At times when we are emotional, we are stressed, we are slightly harsh while drafting our mails. So avoid doing that. While writing a mail, ensure that your mind is absolutely calm. Keep your tone clear and concise. Mark recipients in the appropriate tag. Ensure that who should be in the CC, or whom the email has to be addressed to, and who all have to be marked copy of the mail. Read the copy of the mail twice before sending. And as I said, you can use Grammarly, which will also help you in ensuring that you do not have any kind of grammatical mistakes in the email. Be mindful with reply all. You might have received a mail which is addressed to 17 persons, but your reply is meant only for the sender. So we should hit on the reply button rather than hitting on reply all. Don't share controversial topics, and do not mail any kind of confidential or private information. And one very important aspect is email signature etiquette. Uh, Towards the end, while we conclude our email, we also have to mention that who is the sender. So at times, if we have to type, we say Dr. Alka Maurya, right? But I have to type in all my designation, all my affiliation, all my details, which at times is very difficult because of paucity of time. So there is a provision in all the email applications that you can have your signatures. So you can draft it beforehand so that you do not have to rewrite it time and again. Avoid excessive abbreviation. Always introduce first. If you're writing a mail to the person for the first time, then introduce yourself, introduce your organization, and then start with the topic that you need to take up. Shorten or hyperlink the URL, check the attachment, and check for formatting. On a conference call, we have been reminded about this number of times. Mute yourself when you're not speaking. Use technology to fully engage remote participants, right? During our classes, during pandemic, we used to use various online tools like Kahoot and so on to develop online quizzes to ensure that we are able to communicate with our students. So we can use all such kind of online technology to ensure effective communication with our students, specifically for designing quizzes. There also are online platform for discussions. There is Moodle and so on. So a lot of such platforms are there, which we can use for online discussions. Wear working appropriate clothing, frame the camera accordingly, look into the camera and pay attention. So I think this is the time I had for today. And I would like to conclude my presentation with a very beautiful quote, which says that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should listen more than what we say. So be an effective listener, right? Try to have absolute clarity on what you will be speaking, right? And if you'll follow these 2 important things, your communication will be very effective. And definitely there are other things also which I've mentioned that you can take care of while communicating with anyone, whether in the professional or the family front. This is all from my side. And I hope that I have been an effective communicator and look forward to more such sessions. Over to you, Manoj sir. Manoj sir, my session is over.
Okay, Madam, Sir Manoj has some meeting. So
Okay,
I'm
right, sir.
from HRDC.
Right, sir.
So thank you very much on behalf of HRDC, and thank you very much.
Thank you to all the lovely audience. And as I've mentioned that this was a wonderful start of the day for me while I was interacting with all of you. So even though we are not face to face, I cannot see you, but still through your chats, I actually could make out the wonderful connect that we had today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.